Hi everyone and welcome to our special episode where we're going to be talking about the seriousness of obesity in children. And yes, you did read that title right, which is most likely why you clicked on it. Many of you are here to probably be mad or curse at us, but I don't care. I'm going to say it how it is. If you love your children, listen to me, parents, and anyone ever even remotely thinking about having kids. If you love your children, don't make them fat. Please don't make them fat. Don't make your children fat. Yes, you, parents, I'm talking to you. You are the one making your children fat. It's all you.
Ultimately, I believe that if a child is overweight or obese, it ultimately falls on the parent. It's the parent's fault that the child is fat. And that's what we're trying to explain here.
It's never too late. You can fix this. You can change this, because what you are causing in your children is an addiction to food. The fact that, and I know that a lot of you guys, I have met incredibly, amazingly good parents that they homeschool their kids, they take their kids to play sports. They really spend genuinely quality time with their children. They are really good parents, but they fail on the most fundamental aspect of parenting, which is what you feed your children, which is taking care of your children's health. And I don't think they do it on purpose. I don't think they even realize, how they probably, many times people assume, well, it's just the genes, or they'll grow one day, or, they assume a lot of things. And that's the problem, that we take it easy. We think, oh, well, I'm just gonna make them exercise more, or I'm just gonna do this, or I'm just gonna, and it's just no, something you're doing right now, it's incredibly wrong, and you need to make drastic changes to the parenting in your home and your child's diet.
Yeah, that should be the first thing, that you teach your child, is to learn how to eat healthy, nutritional food, because that's gonna benefit them in their whole life. Having them eat just junk food all the time whenever they want, they're developing an addiction to that carby food, sugary food, the dopamine hit.
They develop, because food eventually, especially highly carby food and processed food and sugary food, boosts dopamine. It releases a lot of dopamine on these kids, and an amount that it's unhealthy, to the point that they create this addiction to this food. Not only create addiction, but they create these habits. And we have a list of things, that the consequences and the comorbidities that come with something so stupid as eating a bag of chips every day, or just eating having this kind of lifestyle that, guys, oh my God. And this comes because I had it in my family. I saw how my parents let my siblings gain weight, and now they've been having an incredibly hard time being able to lose the weight, keep it off. They all struggle with weight, and everybody would judge me and tell me, Francesca, you're just gonna, cause this, eating disorder on them, and leave them alone, and they're gonna be fine, and blah, blah, blah. And now that they're all grown up, they all tell me, Francesca was right, Mom. Why did you allow us to eat this way? Why didn't you cut us off? Why didn't you make healthier lunches for us for school? Why did you allow it? If you saw us gaining weight, why did you allow it? Also in your family, right? You saw your siblings gain a lot of weight because of
I even was going through a period where I was gaining weight, and and then until I had to what happened with me is I didn't even really check it on myself. I just naturally got a little bit into more sports. But in the time where I was growing up, it was more where kids will go out and play in the evenings after school. Nowadays it's different. There's some more sedentary life with technology.
I feel like we're gonna get into a technology aspect, but I feel like a lot of people just blames it on that, and that's not necessarily it, in my opinion. But anyways,
no, but
and definitely in our times, running around did help. But think about this: you still had a very unhealthy diet, despite you losing weight. You never felt fully healthy. You were never fit 100%. You used to tell me that you always kind of felt like you had a little bit of that pudginess, that the bottom of your stomach that you struggle with. Not only that, but you saw normal as like when you had this job that was high intensity. You saw normal eating at places like the closest place from there was Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
And you saw normal eating fast food on a regular basis, drinking soda, having all these just anything that crossed your way as food. As a, it's the fact that nobody told you
those
these habits, and you hear like, oh, you know, fast pace are bad for you, you know, but you don't. Nobody really tells you like why are they bad for you? What is it that it's doing to your intestines, to your gut health? What is it actually doing? How is your body processing processed food versus organic foods? And that's the problem here, that no school is actually teaching parents and kids about the importance of eating organically.
The main thing like that's gonna keep you alive is obviously air and water, but you have to also eat. And then, you know, I never knew about macros until like a few years ago, and it's like this whole time was like nobody ever mentioned like make sure you eat enough protein, you know, make sure you eat moderate carbs.
So pretty much, just because you have bad habits and you love eating frozen food your entire life, or you just have a way of eating, and let's say you don't want to change your ways, it doesn't work for you, you're happy the way you eat, fine. But that does not mean that your children have to eat the same way as you. Just how, I don't know if any of you guys have or had pets. Probably if your children don't eat healthy, chances are that your dogs are not eating healthy either. But many of us like to keep our pets in a healthy diet. And yes, it breaks my heart every time I'm eating and he looks at me and he smells what I'm eating. He knows what I'm eating smells good, and he will love me to give him a piece of what I'm eating. And very here and there, I give him a little piece of what I know is good for him, like a piece of protein or a piece of, you know, or maybe some mix of vegetables and stuff like that. But it's more like on a special occasion. But for the most part, I make sure that my pets stay on their diet. Why? Because I know that is the best for them. Being on a healthy diet gives them the best chance for a longevity, for livelihood, for them being healthier, happier animals, them not having joint problems, them being able to walk easier, not being in pain, you know, not develop other diseases. You know, I know that I want my pets to live as long as possible. Therefore, I'm not gonna sacrifice their health for a slight little moment of dopamine and them wigging their tail and being all happy because I gave them a treat. So that's the same thing with your children, like we do with pets. Like your children should be you should be even more strict about their health.
Like your dogs, like you can give them treats every now and then, but it can't be every day.
It can't be like all the time.
Your kids, you know, you can give them rewards with, you know, candy or whatever they want, but it can't be every day.
Exactly. Children will never know what they're missing if they never had it. It's just kind of like you giving your children alcohol and cigarettes because you like it and you assume they're gonna like it. There's countries where kids start smoking and drinking at a very young age. Like I'm talking like 9-10 years old, you know, because the parents are so ignorant and they see it and they don't see, you know, the harm that will cause on their children, so they just allow it. So the same goes with food. Like food nowadays, especially with these major food companies and how bad they are and how they pretty much own everything.
They put in everything.
Their job is pretty much to make you addicted to their food, so you continue to consume their food. People can always eat as much sugar and carbs as they possibly can, but they can't eat like a lot of vegetables, for example. They won't be able to eat, like they can only eat so much like protein and stuff like that. So that's why they make these proteins that they get injected with a bunch of hormones, and so they look bigger and all kinds of stuff that potentially you're putting into your body, and that's what you're giving to your body. You can go ahead and research and choose like what will be a best diet for your children to eat, what they're going to be eating on a regular basis, what they're allowed to, what they're not allowed to eat, despite of what you eat. And I know we can make a separate video talking about like different situations where, like, let's say your kids are already overweight, and like for example in the case of my siblings, like we'll go and sneak eat and grab like cookies from the cabinet from my parents and stuff like that. There's a lot of things you can go about that, right? That's just because they go ahead and they're sneaky eaters. That doesn't mean they'll be like, oh yeah, you're doomed. Yeah, there's no way you can help your kid. No, there's always something. There's no excuse. Like there's literally no excuse to allow your kids to be fat. And if you honestly love them, we will prove to you how and why is that preventing your kids from being obese is the best kind of love that you can show your children, and setting them up for the best chances in life, the best chances of success, the best chances of health, the best chance of having a good mental health, the best chance of having getting a good mate, a good partner, the best chance of being good parents, the best chances of everything.
All right, so this is from kidshealth.org. Why do kids become overweight or obese? The first thing is poor diet habits. And then the second is not enough exercise. Then it goes into genetics or medication. Oh, not enough sleep. Not getting proper sleep because of too much blue light, I guess, from electronic devices, playing too many video games.
You mentioned genetics, medicine, and not enough sleep?
Yeah.
That is so much bullshit. Like, no.
Wait.
Okay, what is the main
thing? The first thing is poor diet habits and not enough exercise.
No, that's pretty much it.
So eating too much and not doing enough.
The genes is pseudoscience. That is a lie. Like it's not proven that your genes make you fat. Your genes could potentially make you a bigger person, have bigger muscle, have bigger all things. But your genes is not what makes you fat. There's very few rare cases where somebody literally has a problem with their thyroids. But usually, there's a study shown that there's people thinking that that's a case due to literally food and the ingredients on food that causes all these disorders. So let's forget about genes. Let's not even bring that into the equation. That's a lie. There's people that come from generations of fat people and they break that cycle. So that is an extreme false. Like that's just something doctors say to make people feel a little bit less bad about their lifestyle, because for some reason people get more offended about decisions that they make, or like they don't like to take the full like blame. So instead of saying like, yeah, it's you, it's you making yourself fat, they be all like, oh no, it's not you, it's your genes, it's not your fault. So that kind of like makes them feel like a softer, cushiony like fall. And cushions are fall. So it's just kind of like, no, like that's not true. Like if you don't want to live in reality and you don't want to make an effort, and a lot of people don't, some of us, we just want to live a simple kind of life. But that's why you have to make sure that you give your kids the best chance of that, so they don't have to work as hard to lose undo all the bad things that you did when you were little, when you didn't know better. You're in charge of your kids, and your kids are not self-aware. They're ignorant. They know what tastes good, what doesn't taste good. That's all they know.
Because the problem is you're eating too much and not doing enough exercise. So you need to like balance that aspect.
I do agree with the lack of sleep one, because definitely that goes to the whole excess use of electronics. I definitely think that parents nowadays, because of how society is now, like kids instead of playing outside, all they do is play video games. And that's another type of addiction that you're allowing your kids to build. Don't allow your kids to play video games. First of all, they shouldn't play more than an hour to 2 hours. Let's say 2 hours, because an hour goes really fast. 2 hours in a day, but they shouldn't play on a daily basis, because that creates a habit and an addiction. It should be on the weekends, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, to play something to do with their friends. But also it should be well balanced with, actually there should be more physical activity in their lives, because physical activity is something that all living beings, or at least all humans and animals, we need. Animals like naturally want to work out. Like when I take my dog, my little tiny Pomeranian, when we take him running, he's the happiest. He likes to run because that's something they already have it wired and that they need. Us humans because we freaking reason everything, and we've been going through so many generations of not being so much connected with nature, and be more like connected with have a more sedentary life.
Modern lifestyle.
The modern life, we completely taking out exercise out of our daily thing, and that's something that is so important. If you're not a person that likes to exercise, but you still encourage your kids to do exercise on a regular basis, you're already being an amazing mom, because although you don't do it, you still want your kids to do it. You know, just how many parents that didn't, especially older generations, many parents didn't have the opportunity to go to school, but you still encourage your kids to go to school, right? Because you know that that's their better chance of maybe getting a better job, or education is just always good altogether. Same thing, you know. So just because you didn't go to school, oh, I didn't go to school, so my kids shouldn't go to school. Like, no, the same goes with that. I don't like exercise, but I do know that I wish my parents would have pushed me to do exercise, so I'm going to encourage my kids to do exercise. That's so important. Not only important for physique and health-wise, joints, everything, but it's also important for mental health. Our brain needs that. It resets us, it rebalances us, it has all the dopamine and serotonin creation that we need to
the best stress reducer.
You make your kids to be like active children, to do exercise regularly. When they become teenagers and adults, they're just gonna do it like without even giving it a thought, because they're like, oh, I need to run, I need to exercise. They're gonna seek having physical activity because that's part of how they're wired already. That's how this part of their brain.
It makes learning a lot easier. Also, studies that show that like there's a correlation between like learning and physical exercise. So
the benefits of exercise is just amazing. I'm gonna try to include some links below, and as I find new ones, I'll just keep adding more links. I like using YouTube because you'll be able to know, like, somebody's gonna be all like, this is what I do to feed my children, or this is the best kind of, like, you know, healthy diet for my children. Also, when it comes to treats, we really underestimate how delicious and sweet of just a fruit can taste to anyone, but let alone children, because their taste buds are a lot more sensitive. So to them, a piece of fruit, obviously a fresh fruit. I remember giving a couple times where I was given like a bad fruit, and that set me up to be like, oh, like I don't like fruit, but I was not giving like fresh fruit. And then one time I was giving like really good apples. I was like, oh my god, apples actually do taste good. So if you just make sure that you give them the right fruit, but don't, you know, dip it into caramel, because that just teach them to like fruit by itself as it is. Reasons why you shouldn't make your children's bad. Try to put them in the best order possible, but first of all, when you're constantly gaining weight, when you become obese and you have a very unhealthy diet, it's pretty much eventually you're slowly killing yourself. So the end of that, it's, you know, death. And that's why they say you don't see a lot of really old, overweight people. Like, obese people don't make it to it's very rare the person that makes it very old, pretty much. Yeah,
old age.
To an old age. They usually die between 50 and 60 years old, which honestly, it looks like that's old, but it's not old. My parents are in their 50s, almost 60s, and they don't look old at all to me. Like, if they were to die tomorrow, like I would feel that they died really young. Still party.
If people like take care of themselves, yeah, they can go well into the 70s or 80s.
Yeah. That's when you barely start to feel maybe a little old, but you're not old at 50. So dying at 50, it sucks. It really sucks when all you have to do is just take good care of yourself. But the number one thing, if you make your children fat, is you are creating and encouraging their first addiction with food. So that's number one. You are literally making your kids addicted to something, which is you're turning your kids into addicts. Like, what kind of parent are you if you turn your kids into addicts? You're making them addicted to sugar. And not only that, but that creates other addictions. And you're creating an unhealthy relationship with food. With food, pretty much. Like, an unhealthy relationship with food. Which consequently it affects their self-esteem. Because if you ask any kid in the world, usually when I was gaining weight and when my siblings gaining weight, like, they didn't want to be overweight, but they were not self-aware, so they didn't see themselves as, like, they knew they were like a little heavier than the other kids, but they didn't realize that they were like a lot heavier than the other kids.
First thing is, you know, you're setting them up with bad habits to be, you know, addicts, food addicts, and that should be the first discipline that they learn, is, you know, how to maintain a healthy, steady diet. There's a quote that I remember, I don't know who said it, but it goes something like, if you can control what you eat, then you can control everything in your life, pretty much, you know. Because if you can't control that, if that gets out of control, slowly everything else in your life is gonna get out of control.
Which leads to the next point, which says it affects their appearance and their level of attractiveness. I'm gonna leave a link below of a couple videos that I found that will explain furthermore about why this is true. To be fair, most people in the world are unattractive, and I think one of the reasons is because poor eating habits. If you go to places where there's very bad water, there's food is lacking, you see that people don't look very attractive. And there's this video talking about how attractiveness is a matter of, I feel like ultimately being being attractive or knowing how to be an attractive person is a type of intelligence that you can develop, you can learn, and it ultimately comes with self-awareness. Being self-aware. Being in denial is not going to help you anyone. Telling people that they should love you for who you are, it's being in denial, because that's just not how humans are. Unfortunately, I wish humans were better, but I have suffered in my businesses how cruel and incredibly selfish and mean and uncaring humans can be. So that's just reality. Humans are not what you ever want. You can't control how humans think, but you can control your level of self-awareness and how you want to be perceived. That's something you can control. So there is a video that I saw talks about how also people are unattractive because of their bad habits, and it talks about their posture, which overweight definitely affects their posture. But more than anything, definitely the number one thing that everybody says, you have to eat healthier, you have to work out, you have to lose your weight. The overweight, being overweight is, no matter in no country, is ever going to be considered as something attractive. That doesn't mean that somebody who's overweight cannot have love, cannot be attracted to other people. But it's not because you're overweight that you're attractive. It's because many times the features in your face, your personality matters so much to make you attractive, the way you carry yourself, obviously. But here we're focusing purely on pretty much being overweight, being more than just overweight. Ultimately, if parents will take good care of their kids, no level of overweight would ever happen. People would always, if you eat healthy and exercise, you would always be at your ultimate weight. Being a little overweight is unjustifiable, which I'm now struggling because I wish I would have known this younger. When I started losing weight, I started incorporating healthier habits, and I thought I ate healthy, but I didn't eat as healthy as I wish I would know now that I know so much more, which is why I want to make this video. The next thing that will affect their social skills and development, which is what you were talking about, Martin.
Kids will, start making fun of you. You become more self-conscious, kind of start shying away from people so they don't make fun of you or look at you. I don't know, somebody so overweight, people sometimes, or even kids, will stare. It makes them uncomfortable.
It just pretty much,
they can't hide it.
It's nature, man. When you don't feel good with yourself, because for example, this is the thing, and then when people are so self-conscious,
especially
anybody staring at you.
Tell me a fat kid that is gonna go to the beach is gonna feel comfortable, taking the shirt off, or to the pool.
Exactly.
Dude, I had that problem, when I was in in middle school. The class, we went on a field trip to the pool one day. Dude, I felt so uncomfortable.
And it's not even a matter of to me, fat kids, I think they're so cute. When my brother was chubby, I felt like he was a cute chubby kid. To me, there's no more. It's not even a matter of some parents see oh, he looks so cute because he's fat. The fat Asian kids. Yes, they're adorable. I just a fat cat is adorable.
And you're the problem here, right? No,
it's not even. Some people think kids may look. Some kids may look really cute with their chubby cheeks, but more than just looking, more than just looking cute, it's a matter of it's not healthy, because the level of habits that took for this individual, for this kid to become this overweight at such a young age, is setting him up to be a very overweight in the future. And sooner or later, all humans, we have vanity. So once we hit puberty, once we hit adolescence, we start becoming a little more self-aware. We start getting into trying to attract a mate, attract a partner. And when we realize that we're not attractive, that creates a whole roller coaster of mental health issues, self-esteem, traumas, etc., etc. So why will you set your kid up to go through something like that? If you know that boys don't like chubby girls, like, why will you allow your daughter? You want your daughter to be single till she's 30? Like, why will you do that to your kids? Some people never marry. Some people never find the one, because I'm also probably gonna drop the link about how with the mediocre stories, it talks about like a lot of the girls that, especially these feminists or whatever, that they get the careers and they focus so much on their career, and that's because they always felt like they were so unattractive and incapable of, like, no boys will look at them. They just feel like, oh well, I'm just gonna focus on my career, and they focus on achieving something because they think that achieving love or being liked by guys is just never gonna happen. So, that could 100% happen. Like, it's just up to you to change your habits. It's just that your surrounding and the people you are bringing, the people you've been around, just haven't taught you better. And that's the problem that most people don't know about. It's so easy to be healthy, to stay healthy, to not gain weight. And the earlier you start, the better. Also, being overweight, like having a food addiction and being overweight, it affects exercising habits. Overweight kids don't want to exercise because they get tired faster. They see exercising as a form of torture versus a form of having fun, So when you want to make sure that your kids are a normal weight so they can be encouraged to like to run, like to do sports, like do these things. Also, a lot of kids don't like doing sports because not only it's heavy and torture for them. Oh my God, it just came to me the picture, like when this girl will run, dude, like she couldn't even breathe, man, and she'd be like you could see she would have a lot of trouble breathing, and she will get so red, and she will get so, like, it was hard, it was tough on her because
it causes hypertension.
They kids are not very self-aware, but they're self-aware enough to realize she will notice that, like, the other kids had a really easy time and she'll be the last one to be there. Like, it's tough on them to be all like, yeah, why am I gonna do sports? Like, they're gonna make fun of me because I'm not even good enough, I'm too slow, I'm too heavy, I get tired, so all that, it affects them, and that's setting them up for, like, that's the little mentality they're gonna grow up to have when they're teenagers, because they're gonna be like, yeah, I always been the heavy kid, yeah, nobody ever likes me, nobody ever wants me in their team. Like,
I think, like, I seen it go, like, talking about, like, the antisocial thing, like, and how you say, like, as they get older, they develop, like, this whole alter ego of, like, they don't even try to do things because they're like, oh, not good at it or whatever. So they kind of away from things that they should be doing. It kind of develops, like, not like mental health problems, but like it gives them another persona. Like, I've seen either people go, like, fat people be either they're too friendly or they're mean.
Yeah, they try to overcompensate.
Mean, like, they try to be hard.
They turn into the bullies and stuff like that, or they become like, very hard. Yeah.
Like, and either way, it affects, you can tell that.
Yeah, it affects their mental health. It affects their identity and stuff like that altogether. And it just, I don't know, it just blows my mind, like, how parents allow their kids to, like, I don't know, like, how,
like, you don't want the best for your child,
like how can you allow your kid to go through this? Like, why? This is one thing that it would always come to me, like, when my siblings were little, because I was much older than them. And when they were little, I'll be like, Mom, like, they're gonna have problems in high school, like, they're not gonna, you're gonna affect them, they could develop eating disorders, and overeating is an eating disorder, just so you know. It's an eating disorder, but people see somebody being fat as being like, oh, they're extra healthy, they're extra plumpy, and no, that's not true.
Fluffy.
Yeah, and just, like, I don't understand, like, how can parents do that to their children? Like, it just blows my mind every time I am in public and I see a parent with a fat kid, especially when the parent is not even fat and the children is fat. It's like, why? Like, why? Why you hate your kid this much? Like, why you do this to your children? Like it's literally, I feel like everyone and their mother knows like what foods are good for your kids and what food are not good for them. How eating at McDonald's on a regular basis is just not something that you should encourage your kids to do. Like everybody knows that. However, everybody seems to comfortably ignore it. Oh my God, it just blows my mind. I just hope that a lot of people watch this video. So the next thing that affects them, like I said, their posture. When you're a heavy person, you're not gonna have a good posture. When you don't work out and have work on your muscles, you're also not going to have a good posture, because also posture comes with I noticed that the muscles in my back were really weak, so I for a long time had really bad posture. That's something that comes and runs in my family as well. It affects your exercising habits. It sets them up for a life of struggles and unhealthy habits. It affects their mental health. It affects their chances with getting higher paying jobs, because a lot of jobs, especially for both sexes, but let's say for men, like a lot of jobs for men that are high pay, like they require a lot of like physical activity, for example, like electricians or hopping on things, construction and stuff like that. And when you're too overweight, you're unhealthy, like you don't get to rank up very high in the you might be able to get a job, but you're not going to be able to get a lot of promotions or rank up because you're not performing as well as a healthy person will.
There you go. That goes with learning, exercise, and learn.
Yeah, and women as well. Like women who are very overweight, they don't perform as well, because when you're not a healthy person, other problems come in between. Like I'm not saying that it's in every case, but it's usually the case. Certain jobs tend to want to have somebody that's going to have a good presentation, so they're going to give it to somebody who like looks like he tries hard enough, works out every day, like puts a good effort into her appearance. They're more likely to give it to the person that weighs 300 pounds pretty much. So all that, it affects you. Like, why would you want your children? Why would you want to set your children for that? Again, please don't do that to your children. It develops comorbidities. We mentioned that, right? It develops comorbidity conditions, like health conditions
diabetes,
such as diabetes,
hypertension.
Hypertension. What's the other? Also, it affects their joints. It affects
digestive problems.
Many other things, and also the gut health pretty much controls everything. So a lot of these foods that we intake, or depending on how bad our gut health is, this is what why there's so much cancer happening.
It's all this processed food, like your body doesn't know what to do with it.
Develop comorbidity conditions, health conditions, comorbidity conditions such as health conditions, but also comorbidity such as addictions. Addictions, when you have, usually an addict will have multiple addictions. So when you set your kids to be addicted to food, eventually they'll either replace that addiction or add to the addiction. So they'll either add to the addiction, be addiction to like pot. The kid already likes food, and then they start they are depressed or whatever, and they start doing pot.
They get depressed because they're fat.
And they smoke weed, and be like, oh my God, food tastes even better now that I'm high.
Better.
Yeah, so now they become addicted to weed and addicted to food, and then from there they become addicted to maybe alcohol or stronger drugs, and it just becomes a roller coaster of being more lazy and just never being able to give it their best. Like it limits their potential to what they could have been in life, because they just get stuck on that, like, poor me, I'm just, my life just sucks mentality because I'm fat. And why would you set your kids up for something like that? It affects their actual health, their livelihood, and it could lead to even other diseases and more overweight and ultimately early death. So, I mean, we could keep going with everything else that could come from this. It also affects their dating life. There's studies showing that 80% of women are sleeping with 20% of men. Why?
Are they sleeping?
There's so many videos, so many interesting videos. I'm gonna try to include some of them down here, but pretty much because it said that when it comes to like sleeping around, and that's thanks to feminism. Thank you very much for this. When it comes to sleeping around, men have no standards. Like men can a number, for example, they say, like, let's say use a ranking system, right? A number 10 could sleep with a 9, with an 8, with a 7, with the all the way to, well, maybe not a 1, but
like a 4.
Yeah, like a 4 or something. Like, they could sleep with just anyone as long as they're in the right mood. They'll sleep with any girl, but they will not date. But they will not date beneath their level. They'll date another 10 or at the very least another 9. Pretty much, men could date down. Or could date up depending on their personality. But a woman, on the contrary, like a 5, right? An average looking woman, she might get lucky and hook up with a very somewhat of attractive guy, like a 7 or an 8, and think that because she hooked up with an attractive guy, like that's her level, like that's the kind of guy that she should be able to get. So she tries to continue to sleep around with a bunch of people that are above her league. So let's say like this woman, especially with women who are overweight, get on this train of thinking, especially with a new, fat acceptance movement, which is such a toxic movement. They get on this train thinking like, oh, well, they should love me for who I am. They should accept me for who I am. If you don't like me because I'm overweight, I'm fat, you're fat phobic, blah, blah, blah. But this is the thing, like you can tell yourself all you want, and you can tell other people all they want and make them feel and call them all kinds of like phobic names, just to make them feel bad for not being attracted to you. But the bottom line is that just how you're not attracted to, people who are beneath their number, just how you're not attracted to. It's weird. Like, it also shows that a lot of these overweight women, they won't go out and date another fat guy because they're like, no. They want the hot looking guy. They want the guy that works out. They want the guy that looks good. So it's just kind of one of those things where, like, well, why don't you date somebody in your league? But they don't see themselves that way because of this whole hookup culture. And this leads to a lot of women hitting their 30s or in their 30s and they're still single. Why? Because they didn't want to face reality. They didn't want to settle and hook up with guys that actually liked them. They want to hook up with guys that were above their league. And there's nothing wrong if you're literally that's why I always wanted to take care of my body, because I'm like, I like guys that look like this. Like, I was never super, like, most girls like very tall guys, right? And they discriminate the short guys. And literally that's something that you can't change. Like, a person cannot change their height, but they can change their weight. Yeah. So they're not willing to change their weight and look better to attract better looking men, but they will go ahead and reject guys because they don't have the ultimate height. And that's something, thank God, I never care so much about height. Like, I always I would prefer men being at least a little bit taller than me, but I never care. Like, I wouldn't date somebody who's super tall because I feel like that's kind of weird, like taller girls should date taller guys. I'm okay as long as he looks healthy, he's fit, he exercises, takes care of himself, and he's ultimately a good person. And that's why I'm like, okay, so a guy that looks like the type of guy that I like will probably like girls like this. So how can I be that girl? Like, I want to make sure that I look like the kind of girl that this kind of guy would want to date. So that's what you need to do. You have the best chances of success and attracting the kind of person you want. Obviously, personality matters so much. So definitely working on your inner self is something that I always encourage on my channel. I have other videos about that. But right now, that's not the topic. This topic is mainly for parents. For parents and who are about to have kids, or people who are about to have kids, or people who have young kids or already have kids. It's never too late to start. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. I'll make another video to get more tips about what can you do to make sure that your kids change these habits that you already unfortunately started in your home, and give your kids a better chance of happiness. Definitely something so simple. Like, there's so many things that are hard. Like, life is really hard. Life is really, really hard. And one thing you can't control, and one thing that is not as hard as most people think it is eating healthy, having healthy habits, and exercising, and pretty much losing weight. That's one of the, compared to most things in life, that's probably one of the easiest things to do. Most Americans spend so much money on food that they end up either not eating or just hoarding in their cabinets. Yeah. So I'm going to make another video about that.
Yeah, true.
Hopefully this, I don't know, is a wake-up call for some of you guys, and let me know if we can help with anything else. Literally, we need to end this overweight epidemic, and hopefully it happens soon.
Right.
Peace.
Peace out.